Simon Wing was born in 1826. So for some perspective on that, the year he was born, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson died. It was only the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and we had only been Maine for a few years. The very first crude image was captured with a camera, but it took at least 8 hours or several days exposure was required. Long hours in harsh conditions, life was hard for the average person. Life's rhythm was dictated by hours of daylight, no electricity, no indoor plumbing, no running water, or central heating. Be thinking of these things and how his roots begin as you hear Simon Wing's life story. Carol knows a lot about Simon's life journey. I would say in the nicest way, you can call him a wingnut. Carol has visited the Wing Family Museum in Sandwich, Massachusetts, as well as the Wing Fort House. And I'd say you'd highly recommend that to anybody that has interest in Simon Wing.
If I was you.
He is going to start off the presentation with many of the photos he took for this presentation for you. So I'll introduce to you Carol Bryant.
Thank you, Jessica. St. Albans was settled in 1800 and incorporated the 199th town June 1st, 1860 map of St. Albans that shows names and where they are located. One of those names is Isaac Osborne, right here. Friend and business partner to Simon Wing. No name or location can be found for Simon Wing or his parents on this map. This is part of the view of St. Albans Mountain on the right-hand side of the mountain there. Yeah, way off you can see the windmills over there. Yeah.
Where are those windmills?
Kingsbury Plantation.
A little after Simon's day.
What's that?
A little after Simon's day.
Yeah, a lot after it. This is a good view of the mountain. And I'll tell you, if you're standing right about in here, this is where my parents' farm was. And we could see that every day if we woke up. It was out back the barn, but you could walk out back the barn and see it. All right, St. Albans Mountain is where that hard work, experience, endured. Old house foundations, hand-dug wells, and rock walls are like a monument to all hard work. To quote a line from the 2018 New England Journal of Photographic History, it said on 100 plus physically challenging acres, Simon's parents and siblings to Indian town and oaks. Raised a few animals. This is the 1883 map of St. Albans. It also has no names of Simon or his family on it. It's too bad. I don't know why, but that's the way it is.
Where would they be on that map? They're up on the mountain.
Do you want to go to the other map?
This is where Isaac Osborne is here.
Okay.
And cemetery right there. Picture. This is a foundation of Isaac Osborne according to the 1860 map. And some foundation pictures here. Really a lot of labor there put in. And this is the center of the foundation. It was right in the middle is probably the foundation of the chimney.
What does this tie into, Mr. Wing?
Isaac Osborne was a business partner to Simon Wing. So they started business in St. Albans together and eventually went to Waterville and then to Boston. So, yeah. All right. You can see the trees there. Nature is taking back the land by growing trees inside the foundation. This shows stones in the middle of the base of the chimney, like I said before. The measurements of this foundation is 22 by 33. It's a fairly big building, it would have been. Here's a couple of bricks I found, and the top of a wood-burning cook stove that they probably use. They had to use it probably. And here's the dug well. You see, it's kind of dangerous the way it is. No cover on it. And that's 9 feet deep. I found deeper ones though. On the mountain, yeah. More pictures of the foundation, different angles. And this shows, it looks to me like it's an entrance to the cellarway, right there.
Is that all on private property?
It is now, but I have permission to go on and anytime I want to check things out. If I wanted to take somebody down on it, I would do that. This is a picture of a beaver dam. This beaver dam is next to the road that leads to the old foundation. If you look closely, you can see a beaver lodge in the distance.
What can you see?
That little mound in the water,
Oh, yes,
it's hard to see it.
okay.
And it wasn't the beavers that put those logs in front.
I was wondering the same thing. I was thinking that.
Yeah, they drag them. The beavers drag them.
Oh, they do?
Oh, yeah.
And they lay them so neatly.
They do.
They
And
make the dam.
that's keep the water in the pond?
Yeah. Well, it makes it into a pond. It wasn't a pond before they dammed it out.
Oh, yeah, right. That's a lot of work.
The next picture here is my favorite. Still an old bridge of granite stone. This will outlast any bridge they build today.
Is there still a road across that?
It is. Anybody can drive across it.
It looks like all kinds of growth of trees and bushes on it.
Oh, yeah.
Now. Yeah, now.
Nature's trying to take over there, too. And I'm sure Simon Wing and his family have crossed over it many times. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica again.
So you got a feel for where Simon grew up. Now we journey to his years which brought him to Waterville. He and friend, or cousin, depending on which thing you read, Benjamin Merrill went to Waterville Academy in 1842. At some point in that last year at the academy, Benjamin showed Simon a daguerreotype of his sister, Mary Merrill. Simon must have been just as interested in the subject as the daguerreotype as he married Mary in 1852. Just 3 years after the daguerreotype was invented in France by Louis Daguerre, where did Benjamin get one of his cousin, and how did Simon, of his sister, and how did Simon learn the process? There's still so many questions to be answered, but Carol's doing some great research digging into that. And this ended up being Coburn Classical Institute. Many name changes over the years and many design changes. So this was on Elm Street, where Elm Towers is now located. So several articles list Simon starting his business in Waterville around 1855 or 56. Yet this is a map from 1853 with his shop clearly marked. I think this is this, where did Ann go? Yeah. I think this is the same map that's across from the clerk's office in City Hall in the frame. So that's where I first saw it, and I was like, oh, there's a picture of his shop. So where you see the square that says Common, right on the edge of that, at the intersection of Maine and Common Street, it says S. Wing Embro.
You need a pointer. Oh.
Yeah, the laser pointer doesn't work on this screen, so I guess we need an old-fashioned stick.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. I'm so afraid of damaging the screen though, because then I'd probably whack the screen. So this building is now gone, as happened with many of the early clapboard wood frame shops, but it would have been situated about where Elm City Nutrition and Energy is now, the corner of Common Street and Main Street. I love looking at these old maps. So with this huge sign, how many people that could read said, what is a Daguerrian Gallery? And we probably say just the same today, as it was a short-lived period of photography. You're going to correct me on these things, right? So daguerreotype was one of the earliest photographs. It was a copper plate polished to a mirror-like state, then coated in silver and exposed to iodine vapors in a closed box until it changed color, then put into a light-proof holder and into the camera box to expose it to light and capture the image. Then, most dangerous of all, fuming the plate with hot mercury vapors to create the image. And Simon's friend, Benjamin Merrill, only lived to 24, so I wonder, that's a whole other avenue to go down. Lastly, washing the plate in a saline solution to stop the exposure. These highly detailed images were fragile and often housed behind glass in a hinged case or in jewelry. And in the display case at the back of the room, there are 2 daguerreotypes on the bottom. The ambrotype image, underexposed on a glass plate with a dark backing material, made the image positive. Because of the glass, these were often contained in cases as well. Next was the ferrotype, nicknamed tintype, even though it was a thin sheet of iron. So these all were in Simon Wing's time period, but I thought it was important to tell you about how fast and how many things were happening in the world of photography early in his career. And then around 1857, Queen Victoria and her family started the rage of carte de visite. photographs encased in a heavy paper frame, and that's probably not the correct pronunciation, but that's as close as I can get. Photos encased in a heavy paper frame the size of formal visiting cards. People began to collect portraits of their family, friends, and celebrities and mounted them in photograph albums, which there's one in the case open so you can see. And I think I have it open to pictures of some generals. So people collected them, family, friends, and celebrities, and mounted them in the albums, and these were sold at stationers' shops in the same way that picture postcards are today. And we have a few of those in the collection, and they're so interesting to see what people were collecting and who they thought was famous and that they wanted a picture of. So think about what it would have been like to have a photo studio in the 1850s. What is missing from these early photos?
Trees.
That, yes, that wasn't one I was thinking of, but you're right. Not many trees in these pictures either. Recently logged. Other than lightning rods, no wires, no cables, no utilities. The only cable that's in this picture is the lightning rod that's attached to the chimney, and then you can see the cable runs down the roof and down the side of the building to the ground.
It almost looks like he has solar poles.
We're getting to that next. So when you think of a photo studio, today's photo studio, what do you think of if you go to a photo studio? You don't just take it with your camera. Artificial lighting. So what was the challenge back then? So this slightly later photo already showed his advertising outside the gallery entrance. So just to the right of the door is a case that shows all different types of photos that he would do. So he put a skylight into his studio, which was ingenious, but it must have created its own set of challenges. Can you imagine how leaky this must have been? And candles, oil, and kerosene lamps or gas were the types of lighting at this time period. So using that natural light to your advantage in your gallery would be really important. And then married in 1852, Mary and Simon lived in the upstairs front of the gallery, so just above the sign where it says Eastern Express Company. And 2 of their 3 children were born here in Waterville in the short time they lived here and grew their business. So much to see in these pictures. I love the 4 boys with their hands in their pockets, look like they're up to no good. So this rug is known to have been used in his Waterville studio and is on display in the Wing Fort House, also in Sandwich, Massachusetts. So pretty cool that it has made a long journey and is still in pretty good shape for the time period. And also on display in the Wing Family Museum in Sandwich, Massachusetts, this is one of Simon's studio chairs, a painted photo backdrop, and one of his cameras. In the early days of daguerreotypes, they took 3 to 15 minutes for the image to be captured. This made it very challenging for portraiture and explains the often pained expressions on the faces. Often stands with a cast iron base were used to help the person stay still for their photo, to give them a place to rest their arm or their hand. Often these stands were adjustable and could be used to hold the person in line upright and to hold the portrait sitter's head still. Some chairs used shackles to prevent movement. So no evidence of either of these was read about or seen with Simon's work, so perhaps he had a talent for getting people to sit still. As you've heard, quite a few chemicals were used in the preparation and processing of these various types of photos. When a camera was purchased from Simon Wing, you got the whole works. An early photographer had to know a lot about physics and using light to their advantage, as well as a great understanding of chemistry. This was an invoice for all the items needed in the processing of photographs. He also provided a recipe for how to use them. So this photo was not taken by Simon, but it is an early photo of William Dyer's apothecary, and this is circa 1865, so probably was open when Simon was in town. It's diagonally across Main Street, and much like the early items in our apothecary museum, Simon likely obtained all these items locally when he was here. And this is one of my favorites that he took. This would have been from the tiny little 6/6 pane windows that were in the roof on the other side of his gallery. It's the Williams House, and Central Stage Office is the brick that you're looking at here. The Continental Hotel is way down the street. Taconic Row is the other large brick building diagonally across the street. And then probably my favorite, directly across the street with the little checkered pole in the front, is the Ice Cream and Oyster Saloon. And note that you can see to the river as the Lockwood Mills are not yet built.
So, before you go on, how did he manage to keep those little boys still?
I guess if they were moving a little and they were blurred, you probably wouldn't notice. But this could also have been a little later when the time frame was, shrinking down where they could capture the image a little quicker. But that is a good question, because quite often you see the horses are a blur, and you can see that in the fire department picture, and some of the others with different animals that they definitely moved around a lot. And a lot of people that could afford to do a family portrait often had very ghostly looking children because they were just a blur. Yeah, you can see a little bit of the blurriness in this, but not too much. People stood pretty still. And I think, again, this was taken probably from the upstairs, because now we're looking back the other way again, looking north up Main Street. This one was 1857. They were getting ready to go to muster in Bangor. All right, back to you. That throw you off?
Yeah, it,
Am I going out of order for you?
well, I can.
Is that okay?
One of Simon Wing's businesses in if you look at that, it's a wagon that he went around the country with and sold his wares and took pictures probably inside.
The camera on the roof.
Yeah, and the camera on the roof, that's a good picture of that. This is in Boston, I think Washington Street. And that's, he made that sign. So, yeah, it was pretty inventive.
And that's a banner that goes across and connects to the two buildings, and it hangs over the street.
Oh, it goes across the street?
I think, I'm not
It
sure.
looks like it ends right in there.
Do you think this is one of those things you did with a Viewmaster that had two images?
Yes.
Two-dimensional?
It's the stereoscope view,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
in the cabinet.
Definitely is that, yeah.
Huh.
this is one of the displays they have down to the museum. And yeah, it's nice. You notice some stamps over there. And I noticed that the paper to the left, it looks like it has a stamp from that lower stamp there. To me, anyway.
I think so. Yep. Rubber stamps and
And he sold cards. There's a card down in the lower quarter there on the right hand side that they made and sold. Buttons with pictures on them. Yeah, this self-explanatory, really. Some of his cameras that they have on display. They're adjustable. You can see how it moves back and forth. There's an adjusted lens. And this is why they call it a multiplying camera, because it takes a lot of pictures all at once. And this is Simon's wife. And yeah.
So that would have been a single photograph.
Taken at one time.
So somehow the lens was almost like the lens
Well,
had
they had
an
more,
insect
more,
on you.
they had 4 lenses, I think, in one of the cameras.
Yeah, you can see some of the faces are pointing to the
Yeah.
far left, and some to the right, and some straight ahead.
Yeah.
and this was his invention, that you could take multiple pictures in a series.
Well, Simon Wing developed numerous versions of the Ring multiplier camera over the years, starting with his first patent in 1860 and followed by models released in 1865, 1887, 1892, 1899, and 1900. Simon and his son Harvey continuously refined their patterns and designs as the photographic industry became increasingly competitive. Over the business's 50-plus years of operation, they developed prototypes like the Gem camera, and introduced new models such as the 4-lens Ajax, large view, and Yankee multiplying cameras. And yeah, this is another picture of a traveling studio. This Simon Ring and Company photograph features an elderly Simon Ring standing in front of his traveling Ring photo studio wagon, parked by John Burner's Pavilion around the late 1890s to early 1900s. The top of the wagon advertises photography in various styles with Ring's latest approved camera, Boston Simon Ring and Company. Display cases at each end of the wagon showcase tintypes, daguerreotypes, cartiered, cabinet cards, stereo tintypes, and various other photographic formats available for purchase. Simon Wing is seen in the foreground, accompanied by an unidentified woman and child.
I think it's his daughter and granddaughter, but I'm not sure.
They must have had at least 4 horses pulling that. And I have a picture of my grandfather in St. Albans, 1813 1913, excuse me. And he was driving a wagon. He had 6 horses, and that was a lot smaller than this one. Simon's early political views. Simon Wing's political involvement began when he was 21 and could cast his first ballot, voting for an anti-slavery ticket that brought him much ridicule from his fellow townsmen in St. Albans, Maine, circa 1847.
Probably skip the middle
These
part because
photographs
I don't
taken
have those.
by Simon Wing and his daughter Anna Wing Town chronicle the life of Anson Foskey, who escaped slavery as a teenager. Simon hired him for life, entrusting him as a caretaker of the Wing country home in Newton, Lower Falls, just west of Boston, Mass. From the left, Simon Wing Company.
Yeah, I didn't get
It
those,
doesn't show.
unfortunately.
On here, so we'll skip that part. After the 15th Amendment was ratified in 1870, prohibiting states from denying citizens a right to vote based on race. Southern state exploited loopholes in the Constitution and disenfranchised African American voters, intent on preserving white supremacy in the electoral process. Legislators implemented measures such as poll tax, literacy tests, all white primaries, felony disenfranchisement laws, grandfather clauses, fraud, intimidation by the Ku Klux Klan to prevent African Americans' rights to vote. Several enforcement acts were passed by Congress allowing for armed forces to guard voting stations. Simon Wing addressed the pressing and violent issue of equal access to voting for African Americans in the Boston Record, September 1890. Wing stated, "There is no doubt that the colored people in the South are terrorized at the ballot box, but it is a question of whether or not interference of armed soldiers would greatly help the situation. It would be another kind of terrorism and not a good solution of the situation." Simon advocated against using armed soldiers at the ballot box, emphasizing that such measures would only perpetuate fear and injustice rather than solve the underlying problem of oppression and inequality. Throughout his campaign as presidential candidate for the American Socialist Labor Party in 1892, Simon Wing brought out against oppression and institutional racism, advocating for equality and social justice. Here's a ballot that Simon was on. It's down in the left-hand corner here. Wing and Matchett is his last name. And here's the things that were in his desk at the museum. This is a picture of his presidential campaign, trying to drum up business for his campaign, I guess, and he told on the ballot and that one there. And at least one of these is Harvey's, his son's glasses.
And that's his campaign button, right? The little round button with his photo.
Campaign button, oh yeah. Yeah. go. This is the Wing and Forsyth Cemetery up on the Devil's Head Road in St. Albans. And here is the Wing family, part of it anyway, part of it, yeah. Simon's father, Joshua Wing, mother Anna Wing, Simon's brother, Milton O. Wing, Alfred O. Wing, and Jabez Wing are buried here.
Can I tell them about the square?
Oh yeah, tell them about that.
So right here, I'm a member of Maine Old Cemetery Association, so I recognize that little inset in his mother's gravestone, which would have been fitted with a daguerreotype. And there was actually an article in Scientific American around that time period that even told all the steps of how to affix a daguerreotype with a lead sheet behind it and the adhesive and everything to put into a gravestone. Not many of them survive today because people broke the glass or they tried to cut them out and peel them out so that they could keep them. But I think that's pretty cool that he had a gravestone made to put his mother's picture in there. Probably not, but on an older find a grave picture, it looked like maybe it was still there, so it's possible. You never know.
Back to the museum down in Massachusetts. Up here is Simon's father. Simon's brother, Isaac Wing.
They all could grow a beard.
Yeah. Good beard back then. They wore a little bit.
Yep.
There's information on Simon being brought home.
When he passed away, he was cremated at Mount Auburn Cemetery in Massachusetts.
Yeah, from Harvey Wing's diary, that's what this is from, about the family of Simon Wing going through probate and the trip from Boston North Station on a train to Pittsfield, Maine, continued to Houghton, and then driven, probably by wagon, to St. Albans with Simon's ashes to be buried in the village cemetery. And this is the village cemetery right here. And that's his stone, Simon. And there's Simon and his wife Mary, Harvey his son, and wife Eva are buried there.
Are there any wings left in town?
Yes. We can get permission.
That would need cleaning.
I was following that train of thought.
And here's a good picture of him in his 70s. Yeah, I did have some more.
Okay.
Just-
So, the poem The Dash by Linda Ellis. It is not the birth or the death, it is how you live your dash. That line in between. Uncle Simon was how he was affectionately referred to at the annual family reunions. He never drank or smoked, and by the age of 84, Simon Wing accomplished more in his lifetime than many people dreamed.
Yeah, just go through a list of Isaac Osborne's wife. He had two wives. The first one passed away, and and he had 5 children. George, the son of his first wife, and him, he was 47. Kate, the daughter, she was only 21 years old when she died. Vera, daughter, she was only 20 when she died. Laura, daughter, she was only 17 years old. And Walter, he was only 3. And, okay. Some of the businesses that he had, businesses in: Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Hampshire, Illinois, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Tennessee, New York, California, Nevada, Oregon, Ohio. Beyond the United States, it was British Columbia, Canada, New South Wales, New Zealand, Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania, and Greenland. Thank you.
Were any of them in the Civil War? Because that's kind of about that time.
Not that we've found. His brother-in-law?
Yes, his
Was?
brother-in-law, which was a mayoral, he was in a battle in Virginia, I think, if I remember right.
Yep, that sounds right.
And the interesting part about that, he was killed. He was a flag bearer, and he was killed on the field there. But what the North did, they dug a trench, or not really trench,
Tunnel?
a tunnel, yeah, you said it, a tunnel quite a ways up underneath where the South had their troops. And they had to go up in there and put the fuses and stuff. The place was lit with candles. They lugged
Is it gunpowder?
gunpowder.
Blasting powder?
They had sacks on, or something to lug them on each of them. They had a yoke on the shoulders. They lugged them up through there, and the candles on each side of the cave. What am I going to say? Yeah, there was, and then it, they killed a lot of people when they blew it up.
Was that the unit with the main MA artillery?
Not sure. I've got a picture of it from the museum that describes the
Yeah.
battle that his brother-in-law was in. So I can't find it super fast. I know it's in there. And I could get back to you on that.
So is this a self-portrait here of the son?
Probably, but Harvey, his son, may have taken it as well.
Yeah.
But he certainly came into photography at the right time, because with the Civil War and the cabinet cards and their popularity, it was also a way for the Civil War soldiers going away to have pictures to take with them that weren't really fragile, like the daguerreotypes and the ambrotypes. It was something that they could carry with them, but then there were also carts all along the battlefield areas where you could go in and get your picture taken, and a lot of those cards were really easy to mail too, so they could mail them back to loved ones for people to see how they were doing.
Very crisp.
It is. It's amazing.
But if he was anti-slavery, then his ethics would have been in conflict if he had much to do with the Northern Army, right? Maybe he just flat out refused to serve.
I don't.
He advocated,
Yeah, he was
advocated for
too
the black.
old, I would say.
He advocated for the black.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So is there any Osborns up in St. Albans now?
The only one I know of, I'm not sure where he lives now, but yeah, he lived down the road where I live now. But I think he moved out.
So
somewhere
did his
else. I'm not
partner
sure.
move to Waterville with him, or did he stay in St. Albans?
Isaac Osborne, did he come to Waterville?
I think so.
Oh, he did?
I think so. I'm not sure, but I think so.
And then there's also a tie-in with C.G. Carlton, which you've probably seen many times. We have a lot of his work also. And he had a shop, it's in one of these pictures, almost across from Isaac. And there's also discussion about whether they work together also. So that's a whole other story to uncover. Do you know the details about that? No? It could be an entire exhibit filling upstairs about all the different photographers from Waterville and all the different works that we have of their photography studios, and just some really amazing things. And I hope you'll take the time to look around at the different pictures, kind of visualize what it's like now compared to what it looked like then, and the different things from the collection that we have here. And Carol also brought these books that are from the St. Albans, Pittsfield area. So if you have any long lost relatives, they're, as many historical societies, they were dropped off with no details about them. And very few of them are labeled, as is a genealogist's nightmare, as always. Do you have any other questions? Yep, Eric.
What was the relationship between Isaac Osborne and Simon Wing?
Childhood friends, right?
Yeah, they were childhood friends. They grew up together on the mountain. I think it was cousin, first cousin. Yeah, they went into
This director, book director.
Waterville unique in this? Is it sort of a revolutionary inventive place, or is it just sort of happening all over the place?
I definitely think he was very early getting into the study of doing the daguerreotypes. Just if you look at the time frame and how quickly he was making them, I don't know if he trained in Paris, how he ended up finding out how to do the process. But he definitely taught a lot of other people and really was revolutionary in the way that everything he did was like a package. You would get your camera, but then you'd get everything to go with it, and like the support system from him. You weren't just buying a camera, you were buying everything for your photography business. And he had a printing shop, and he printed cards and penny postcards, and
it was a dangerous job. Some people got hurt.
I mean, you almost wonder with the ages of Isaac Osborne's kids, like, were they around any of the photography chemicals? Because they didn't live to be very
They
old.
could have been running around free and
Yeah,
yeah.
never know.
So his gallery, you said that he lived up, him and his family lived upstairs.
Yes.
And the gallery was where he took sittings,
Yes,
pictures, and
Yes.
whatever, the selling of the equipment.
yes.
Or how big of a business. That's a large building.
It is, it is.
Business.
It was the Eastern Express office on the first floor, but everything they had was upstairs. But it was also a great spot to take a lot of these pictures, was from the upstairs of the photography studio. And I'm sure that those cameras weren't lightweight to lug around with you, so if you could just keep it on the tripod in your window of your studio, then that's a whole lot easier. Eric?
Did Simon Wing actually build that building, or it was an existing building which he?
I don't know that. Like I said, there's still a lot of mysteries to uncover. I'm not sure.
Okay, we don't know.
So did he put any signature mark on any of his famous?
No, that was the other thing. He very rarely labeled anything that was his. You just kind of had to get a feel for it. I mean, we're really lucky that a lot of this has provenance and was labeled in the collection here, that a lot of these are Simon's photographs. The fire department one, these, that one. I'm not positive on that one, but it shows a little bit of Waterville Academy in the Elm Street area, so I thought that that was interesting. And then the one on top of the china cabinet actually says photo taken by Simon Wing. So.
This sounds like a silly question, but these are the actual original photographs, not reproductions?
These are prints, old prints, made from daguerreotypes, because we actually have that information there too that's laying on the table.
So the original image as projected on the glass was that large? Question mark. And that's a really big picture.
Right, I don't believe it would have been, no, probably an enlarged print later on. But you can tell by looking at it that they're definitely older. They have a silver look to them. But the larger the daguerreotype was, the more expensive it was. So the one that is in the case back there, that's a whole family, that's large for a daguerreotype and would have been quite expensive.
Yeah, what year
Right.
was the fire department picture?
1857. It says 1855 on it, but other things I've seen in the collection when it was given shows 1857, and that matches up better with engine company number 3 going to Bangor to muster. So I think July 4th, 1857 is more accurate.
Those old cameras, my grandmother had one, I was there when she sold it, but I only saw it one time when she had it out. They had like a wooden tripod, and those things, they weren't small, and the plates that went in them were huge, and they were glass. So you had to be very careful when you was even transporting them, because
Yep,
that stuff breaks easy.
that would have been an ambrotype. Yes. Any other questions? We'll definitely take a look around, especially now that you've seen the slideshow. This will bring these into perspective a little bit more. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
You know, I like Larry that way, that because